You have a storybook origin moment for wanting to become an Olympic athlete. 4 year old Chaunté Lowe sees FloJo on the TV at the Olympics, and she says to her mom, "That's who I want to be when I grow up." And that visualization sticks with you, but especially within your childhood, it's just a very strong visualization for you. I'd say there's a much more raw and grounding visualization, though, that you carry with you throughout your life. And that's that life could have looked very different for you if you didn't chase your dreams. How do you think your unstable upbringing as a kid played an even bigger role in you with your athletic pursuits?
Oh my gosh, that's such a loaded statement. I love that you asked that. Um, so when I think about my childhood and how I grew up, and then even just getting among other high performers, other elite athletes, other people at the top of their field, I've learned that because I had an unstable upbringing, my goals were my own. It wasn't somebody else's goals that were projected on me. They were things that were absolutely meaningful to me. And because I didn't have a huge support system of people who knew how to get it done, I was doing something that nobody else in my family or my mentor groups or anything had ever done or seen before. I was felt responsible for it. So I felt responsible for going out and getting the information. I felt responsible for doing the research and finding the best university to go to find a coach that could get me there. And so I think having an accountability and an ownership over, seeing FloJo at the age of 4 years old, and then ultimately getting to that Olympic venue and being able to earn a spot to compete on the Olympic stage, there was an ownership on my part. So like all the excuses are out the window. There was no place for blaming anybody else. It was all about what could I do to get there. And I find a lot of people that are in that situation kind of adapt that mindset and that mentality.
Do you think that also provided a sense of freedom in a way?
Maybe it didn't feel like it at the time,
Yeah.
but but once you start having that little element of success, it is freedom because you feel like ultimately, my decision making, what I decide to commit to is the thing that is going to get me there. And you feel like you get to see that like the excitement of having that action and result, action and result.
I like how your elementary school seems like it also aligned with your dreams. In the third grade, you had to do timed mile runs,
Yeah.
and you thought that you thought you'd be the fastest, but
Yep.
became aware of other kids' times, and you were like, "Oh, there's some kids who are faster than me here." How important was that to have that competitiveness built at a young age, but more so also the mental wiring of, "Oh, I'm not the best, so I need to work to become better."
Oh my gosh. Okay. I love that you did your homework and knew about those mile runs. Yeah, I remember the guy's name, Andrew Mullins, and there was a girl named Melanie Sabi. Like, if you're listening, you inspire me. And I remember like asking my mom, like she was my wisdom point. And so I'm asking my mom, like, how do I get faster? And she talked to me about like eating bananas for potassium and like how baking soda could help get lactic acid out of your muscle. Like all of these things that a second, third grader like would not
Yeah.
care about. But like I remember it being important to me. And so like now I'm looking at people and my husband always says like, "Girl, you're like a sniper because you put a target on somebody's back." And I'm like, "I don't mean it like that." But it's like if I can't look at somebody that's like 10 places ahead of me if I haven't conquered the one that's like right in front of me. And so I kind of think of my goals as a hurdle approach where you get over one barrier and one hurdle to get to the next, because I've realized for my own mental health, if I'm trying to get all the way to like from from I'll just put it in basketball terms, from like bouncing a ball by yourself to LeBron James, that's going to feel overwhelming. So you might have to get like I'm not going to name anybody that's in between.
Yeah.
but you have to conquer each barrier one at a time. And so that's what I started doing with that mile run. It was like my playground to be able to like, okay, I'm going to catch one person. Let me just catch the next person and catch the next person. And now the only person between me and my dream of becoming the fastest is just one person. And so it's so exhilarating, but at the same time it kind of drives your focus when you're able to look at that goal, see it tangibly, and take steps towards it, literally when you're running the mile.
When was that first shift when it went from, oh, I want to be this great athlete and potentially be on the Olympic stage to having that conscious awareness and I guess having that evidence of like, oh, I am that great athlete and I'm on the path?
I think that I don't think that I've ever like said that I am that great athlete, because I think like, and I say this very carefully, because yes, there was an element of confidence there. But I think that, in sports, you could see, and even in business or in life, that something could happen that could humble you really, really quick. And so I always wanted humility to be a part of my process. But along the way, I remember having this thought, and I think probably when I watched the Olympics or I watched a sporting event, I'm like, these are just humans. Like when you humanize them, like they have skin, they have bones, they have muscle, like they're human people. And when you see human people do extraordinary things, you understand that you are capable of extraordinary things. And so I remember I was actually training against some of the guys when I was in college. And the heights that they would clear every single day were the American record. And so my goal was that American record. I'm like, if I could run as fast as you run and I could lift as fast as you lift, then I should be able to jump what you jump.
Yeah.
And that's where I started making this mind shift between I'm just a victim of whatever results I can get, to where no, I have a say in this thing. Let's Everything is a recipe. Every success, if you want to write a successful book, there's a recipe. If you want to have a successful business, there's a recipe. If you want to be a Super Bowl champion, there's a recipe. And so when I started realizing that there's a recipe for every success that you want, then I started gathering the ingredients.
Mm.
And that's when I knew, that's when my mind shifted. Like I knew that there was very small limits to what I couldn't accomplish if I was willing to do that. I think the problem that a lot of people have is they're not willing to make the sacrifice that is required. So
I think that humility can also be a lot easier to obtain or embody when you have a lot of other great people around you, not just being a big fish in a small pond, but
yeah.
being around a lot of other highly competitive, highly successful people, especially when you were in high school. I mean, you got over 150 college scholarship offers, which is just absolutely insane to think of. But you said that that was kind of just like seen as the norm at your high school because there were a
Yeah.
lot of other athletes who were getting the same amounts of things.
Yeah.
Having that within high school, starting at such a
Yeah.
young age, how do you think that kept you level headed, but also continued to plant the seed of like
Yeah.
greatness is the expectation here?
Absolutely. I think that for me, I wasn't the best on my team when I first came in. And so we had a team that had an ultimate goal. They had already talked about it a couple of years before I got there, that they wanted to win a state title. So as a team, they're making decisions that normal 14 to 18-year-olds are not making, where they all decided we don't drink soda. Like the most we're going to do is we're going to drink lemonade, or we don't eat enormous amounts of sugar. We don't really eat a lot of fried food. We go to bed on time. So as a collective team, they're making these decisions. And like you said, you have that element where the iron's going to sharpen the iron. If you're around a lot of other sharp people, you eventually, when you rub up against them, you're going to get sharp as well. And so being in an environment where there's a lot of athletes who have a common goal, they're willing to make the sacrifices, then they're holding you accountable. And so if you become part of that team, or you're part of that goal, you are a piece of the puzzle, then they're going to make sure that you kind of fall in line. And that's what I had. We had amazing athletes. There's a young lady actually that went to University of Texas. Her name was Nicole Demby, and she was an amazing athlete who went to the Olympic trials when she was in high school. Then we had like Joanna Hayes and Nicole Hoxie, who also went to Texas. And these athletes are pouring into the younger athletes to ultimately get the goal. So before I had went to JW North, which was my high school, we had never won a state championship. But while I was there, we won 3 out of our 4 years. And the way that it is in California, there's not like Division 1, Division 2, Division 3 state. It is one state champion for the whole entire state.
Wow.
So it's a big deal. And I feel like a lot of my foundation of what it takes to go from zero to championship was developed there. And it's so much easier when you have people around you that are supporting you. And like you said, not being the big fish in a little pond.
What was it about Georgia Tech? So after high school, you go on to Georgia Tech. What was it about that school and that program that gave you the confidence of like, this is where I'm supposed to be because this is how I'm going to get to the Olympics?
Yeah, I think growing up in an environment where I don't have a lot of people who are that can give me the resources to do what I want to do, I started finding examples of what I needed in other people. So like one of my biggest goals is like I want to have like a successful marriage when I grow up. Like I want to marry one guy and be with him till I get old, you know. And so I'm looking at these marriages of people who have been together for like 50 years, like using that as my example. And when I started doing that, I realized that once I realized there are recipes, you don't have to be the author of the recipe. You don't have to be the green chef. Like you,
Mm.
like what's that famous chef's name? Chef Ramsay.
Yeah, Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, you don't have to be Gordon Ramsay, but if you find Gordon Ramsay, you could learn from him. And so when I started thinking about my life and my goals of becoming an elite athlete, and also I wanted to become the first person in my family to graduate college, I'm looking for a coach who had been there before, who had coached athletes to where I wanted to go. And like a lot of people don't know this about me, but I had very good grades in high school, like honor roll almost every semester. So it was important to me to find a place that would that would kind of support my goal of being a jock nerd. Like, and so that's what Georgia Tech did. And so I found my coach, Coach Nat Page, had coached the American record in the women's high jump. Her name was Tisha Waller, as well as himself being an elite athlete who made the 1980 Olympic team, but we boycotted, so he didn't get to compete. But knowing that he had been places I already wanted to go, and understanding that if you find that expert and you align yourself under them, follow their recipe, you could likely get there too. And so that's how I chose Georgia Tech.
Visualization, like we've talked about, plays a role within your journey on a macro level with having that visualization of FlowJo. But what I find interesting is that it seems like visualization also played a role on a micro level when it came
Mhm.
to your performance. And what
Yeah.
I'm talking about is you had a piece of tape up in your dorm room at
Yes.
the height of breaking the high jump record,
Yes.
6 feet 8 inches, 8 and 3/4 inches.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that and just like seeing that piece of tape and just obsessing over that.
I love that. And I think that a lot of times we need those visual reminders. And so I think a lot of people have heard the statement before that if you write a goal down, you're 42% more likely to achieve it than those people who don't write things down. And so like I wanted to take it a step further because I understand that there's different types of learners. So like yes, I wrote the goal down. I have that messed up ratty notebook that talks about that. But then I also wanted to have that visual reminder, and I put it in my doorpost because it would confront me every single day. So like as I'm like right before I'm going out into the world, it's like, okay, these classes are hard, but in order to get the opportunity to jump, you have to be accountable in your classes. And then, when you go to practice today, you have to give it your best, everything you have that day. Now, when you go to the dining hall, you need to skip that ice cream machine. And so even though you're around other people that hold you accountable, those people are not going to be around you 24 hours a day. And your greatest battleground is not going to be in the world. Your actual greatest battleground is right here in your mind. And so if you're able to fight that battle for your mind and you win the battle for your mind, I believe you're much more likely to achieve that goal. So putting that piece of tape up was like that first fight for the battle of my mind. And I also believe the first thing that you do in the day kind of sets the tone for that day.
So your recipe continues to go as planned. And what I mean by that is you make the Olympics at 20 years old. What was that first Olympics like, especially at such a young age?
Oh my gosh. Okay. First of all, like anytime that you have a dream and it comes true, it's like a euphoria feeling. It's a unbelievable. It's like a solid state of reflection because you're like, "Oh my gosh, like this really happened. What did I do?" Like let's talk about what I did so I can do it again. But there was part of my process in finding those experts was watching the other Olympians from the past Olympic Games on a VHS tape. So I'm like watching, rewinding it, watching again, studying their technique. And
Going
I've
back to that
learned
4-year-old self.
back to that 4-year-old self. And I did that every single day when I was in high school. So like at 6 o'clock in the morning before I went to school, I'm watching that tape. And as I'm watching that tape, I learned the faces of these athletes. I learned their name. I learned their techniques. I've gained like a tremendous amount of respect for them. And then I go to the Olympics and all of these women are competing against me. It shook me. It shook me. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't ready. I was scared. And so I did crash and burn at my first Olympics, but it made me stronger because now I understood that the goal that I set for myself was too small.
Mm,
My goal was only to make it to the Olympics, and I didn't think
mm.
past that moment of actually making the team and didn't understand when I set that goal that the making the team happens months before the actual competition. And so that forced me to come back better next time when I tried out again.
That's really interesting, and I like that component of it. It's almost like we have to think, all right, whatever you want your goal to be, actually think like 20% past that, because
Yes,
that's what you actually need to be focusing on.
agreed.
The 2008 Olympics in Beijing
Hmm.
for you
Hmm.
is really, really interesting
Yeah,
because it's a defining event in your athletic career,
yeah.
because it's the first time where you're not just a competitor, but you're also a mom.
My mom, yeah,
So your first goal is obviously to make it to the Olympics.
yeah.
When did you know that you wanted to be a mother?
Oh my gosh. I think I always knew that I wanted to be a mother. I thought that I would have like five boys and they'd all be on a basketball team together. But I just knew that like all the less I had such an amazing childhood. I mean, a childhood where you're running through the riverbed and like, feeding horses, eating fruit off of your neighbor's trees and I always wanted my kids to be able to experience that. And becoming a mother, the timing of it was definitely different than I expected, a lot earlier than I expected, but definitely welcomed. I felt like, we've done really, really hard things before. And one thing that I believe is that when you are faced with a problem and you find a solution to that problem, the wisdom that you gain, you never lose. And so once I had that first child going into the 2008 Olympic Games, and it was hard, every day was grueling, but every problem that I faced and found a solution for made me stronger. So the next two times that I did the same exact thing, meaning going to the Olympics with a new baby, I was so much stronger and more prepared. So it definitely was hard, but it was a foundation for what I believe is a very successful athletic career as a high jumper.
There's some other interesting components about that 2008 Olympics. One of them having to do with your daughter, and it also involves your husband Mario as well. So
Mhm.
he was a high jumper, and you guys were scheduled to jump at the trials at the exact same time,
Yeah.
and he drops out so that he can take care of your daughter, and you end up doing your trials and end up going to the Olympics. I mean,
Yeah.
talk to me more about that. I mean, talk about
Yeah.
the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah, so he's actually, and we're both jumpers. He did do the high jump before, but in this particular case, he was going to be doing the triple jump, and that's like his
Okay.
main event. And we're at the Olympic trials. We didn't have anybody come with us, so like no grandmas, no aunties, nobody. And we looked at the schedule, and so he was like right on the cusp. Like they take 16 jumpers. He was like number 17, but one of the guys dropped out and he knew that he could take that spot. So he was getting ready to prepare. And we knew that that was going to be a possibility going into it. What we didn't know is that the schedule was going to have us both jumping at the exact same time. And I remember like I couldn't ask him. Like there's no way like, "Hey, don't jump." Like but I think He had been through with me throughout the whole entire process. We knew that I had already been on an Olympic team. The chances of me making the team were pretty high, and we had to pick one. And so our daughter, like the first kid you make all the mistakes with, I mean, not all the mistakes, but like the learning opportunities. And so my daughter, she didn't take a bottle. So she was still nursed at that time period. Um, and she didn't go with strangers, and we didn't feel comfortable just leaving her with a stranger. And I remember during the warm up, I heard my daughter cry. Like, and I was like looking and I couldn't focus, I couldn't jump. And so I left the competition field, went and nursed my daughter, and then came
Wow.
back. And my husband had to hold her and have her like available so that if I could see her and I knew that she was safe, I could focus and compete. And so, yeah, he gave that up. And I think it's a testament to choosing who's in your close circle. Who are the type of people that are around you? Are they like nice, nasty people who say underhanded things and really don't have your best interests at heart? Or are they the type of people who you could share your goals and dreams with and would be there and have your back? And so I think like the person you choose to marry and ultimately spend your life with, but are the people that you choose to be your close best friends. It's really, really important to choose really, really good people.
Especially when it comes to your performance at the end of the day.
It is.
And I want to talk about the whole family dynamic
Yeah.
when it comes to athletic performance. But before that, there's another interesting component about that 2008 Olympics. And it's a much more sobering experience, I would say.
Hmm.
While you're at the Olympics, you were dealing with potentially having your house foreclosed on.
Yeah.
And it ultimately does happen.
Yeah.
How did that come to be? And in the moment when you're at the Olympics, are you able to compartmentalize that, or how do you deal with all that?
Oh my gosh, your homework is so good. I'm so proud of you. I'm so sorry. You're doing a great job. Yeah, so it was, and I think that that ultimately played a decision in who was going to be able to compete at the Olympic trials. So it wasn't just a this is your dream decision. It was a strategic financial decision.
Mm,
So I was sponsored by Nike in that time period. You know, there's bonuses associated with making the team, and we're really, really trying hard to save our home. On top of trying to save our home, we also had a rental property where there was a family. We rented to a low income family because we wanted to be able to have that. So we're fighting not only for our home, we're also fighting for their home. And it was really important for us to kind of put us in the best situation. So we knew that me going would put us in the best situation. On top of that, we also knew that getting on that Olympic podium and getting a medal was a huge, it was pretty much our house was packed when I left for the Olympic Games. My husband and daughter stayed at home, so I did have to leave because they would not allow my daughter in the Olympic Village during that time. And I was like had the pressure of like if I get a medal, we get to keep our home and we get to unpack. If I don't get a medal, we have to pack as soon as we get home and leave. And
wow.
so that yes, that was definitely stress, but I actually performed really, really well. I jumped the highest that I had jumped that season up until that point. I end up placing sixth, but I bet you're going to talk about that.
Let's go there now.
Yeah, I placed sixth. I didn't get the medal. So we come home, we pack up, and we leave. And when we left, we actually took our finances and made sure the other family could stay in that home for another year. So we left, but we made sure they were able to stay in their home for another year. But ultimately, both homes did get foreclosed on.
Let's go to that medal story now and how, I mean, the medal story is crazy to begin with, but then when you understand that piece of the story and the backstory
Yeah.
becomes even more wild. So talk to me about the entire experience with the medals.
Yeah, that was a really hard time for everybody. We had, you know, people that were getting caught in those predatory loans. And so, like, people were losing their houses nationwide. On top of that, we had a huge recession. So it's like we were actually looking for additional work and we just couldn't. I remember I applied for 230 jobs and we just
Wow.
could not find work. And so After that, I started turning to finance because my degree was in economics, and I was like, man, I want to find a way to fight for people. Like that advocate inside of me starts growing, and so I ultimately start learning that career. But 8 years pass, so I make another Olympic team in 2012. We're able to purchase another home. Um, we purchased it cash. We're like, that's not happening again. It was, and to be honest, it wasn't like we had a lot of money. It was $100,000 house, but it was nice. It was nice.
I didn't know
And
that those exist.
oh, it was at the end of the market
Yeah.
crash comes down. It was $106,000, I believe, on a quarter acre lot. I miss those days.
Yeah.
3-car garage. Anyways, but so we end up getting a home. We go to the 2012 Olympics. We go to the 2016 Olympic Games. And then both of those Olympics, I end up becoming a new mother again. So now 2016, three beautiful children, four Olympic Games appearances total, no medal. Like I got so close to get to the point where I'm the last jumper of the 2016 Olympics. Four girls were in. All three of them missed their attempts. If I'm the last jumper, if I make it, I'm the Olympic gold medalist. If I miss it, nothing. I end up knocking it off with my toe at the last moment. So now I'm like at the Olympic. No, I'm at the White House with the other Olympians. I'm watching all of our Olympians with their medals, and I'm just like, oh, like the pain, the daggers, and I just remember sitting there just being like, this sucks. This sucks so bad. And then after I go home, after that White House visit, I get a call that 8 years earlier, when I was competing in the Beijing Olympics in the rain with a nursing infant at home and placed sixth, three of the women who placed in front of me had cheated. And so they were going to take the Olympic medal and they were going to reallocate it to me at a special ceremony. And I was like, so happy in that moment. But then, like, sometimes you're like, what if?
Yeah.
What if I would have gotten the medal at the games? The foreclosures wouldn't have happened. But there was so much growth, so much advocacy work, so much development and gratefulness that happened that I'm not upset.
So how does that work? Like, how did it come to be that 8 years later they found out they were cheating? Like, they still investigate past games, or
Yeah.
what's the whole backstory behind that?
Yeah, so in the Olympics, especially in track and field, we have an extensive drug testing system. So here in the United States, you have to tell your governing body where you will be 3 months in advance, every single hour of the day. And if you're not in that place that you say that you're going to be, and they come to test you, like you get three strikes and then you're out, pretty much. Like you get
Wow.
banned for several years. And so I was under extreme testing, drug testing for years. I mean, the day that I gave birth to my first daughter, they came to my house on my way to the hospital and drug tested me. Like
Oh
that,
my
like literally
gosh.
big old giant stomach.
Wow.
But that's how it is. And so one of the other things that they do is when you go to the Olympic Games, I think pretty much the top eight, they try to, as much as they can, the top eight participants, they're going to drug test you. And so they take those samples, whether it's blood, urine, and they hold them for 8 years. That's our statute of limitations. So a lot of times people are beating these drug tests because they understand how to cheat the system. They know what to take and what time to take it and what sensitivity to take it so that the test can't catch it. Well, once that was started to be discovered, they figured out that 8 years is about a great amount of time for the testing methods to catch up with the cheating methods. And so they hold your samples. You have to give like 90 milliliters or maybe 110 of urine, which is quite a bit when you're dehydrated and have been competing for hours. And then they take that sample and they split it into two. They test one immediately, and then they hold the other one in a storage facility and test it again 8 years later.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. So that's how they caught the athletes, where 8 years later, three people ahead of me had cheated.
And I think the cool thing about that as well, because when we look back at you at 4 years old and seeing Flojo on the TV, it's almost like you gave that experience to your kids as
Yes.
well, and being able to see their mom get an
Yeah.
Olympic gold medal. and
That is like,
have
yeah,
that visualization at a young age.
yeah,
Something even that much deeper, like wow, like look at my mom getting
yeah.
an Olympic medal.
I love that. And that is the highlight where, I don't live in regret about that moment or how it happened because I got to be that inspiration for my kids. My oldest was only 12 months old, at the time I would have won that medal, and then the other two children didn't exist. So just being able to be that influence, that inspiration, that storyline that might give them inspiration or hope when they face something hard. And then ultimately it changed my legacy from an athlete who was just a mom and had perseverance to one that did so with integrity. And I think like so often our our younger generation or people that are pushed up against a pinch might have that temptation to act outside of integrity, and they feel like the people that are taking the shortcuts are getting ahead of them and exceeding them in life, when in reality we understand that, oh yeah, they might appear to be winning initially, but everything that they're doing in the dark, it's eventually going to come to light, and when it does, you lose so much more than you would have gained from cheating. And so just to be able to be the live example for my kids, that's everything to me.
Yeah, I'd love to dive deeper into the family component of everything because that's what I'm most fascinated about when it comes to professional athletes. And I think it's something that doesn't get talked about enough. It's just
Yeah,
like being able to balance being at the peak of a sport,
yeah,
something that asks everything of you, where it could truly be like the most selfish type of life,
yeah.
but then also being of the mindset of, well, I'm a parent as well and I'm building a family. How do you balance all that?
Yeah, I love that you use the word selfish because when I say it, I was like, I don't think people fully understand, to be at the top of your game, there's a certain amount of selfishness that is an asset and pretty much required when you want to be great. But being a parent, it trumps that. Like you try to be
Yeah.
selfish, you can't, because there's these little people that are relying on you for their life and their survival. And I remember thinking like, I have to thank my mom just for keeping me alive. Kids try so hard to hurt themselves. And it's a lot of work. And so, I think it's obviously different from female athletes to male athletes, but
Yeah.
when you are getting up in the middle of the night or your child is tired or sick, you're not going to say, "Well, I got a game tomorrow. Get out of here." You can't do that. You have to hug them and they're going to sneeze and snot on you, and then a couple days later you're going to be sick too. And you know it's coming. It's like a freight train just
Yeah.
but that's what you do because you love your kids, you love your family. And I think that being a parent makes you more compassionate for others. I think that it gives you a heart for what other people might be going through. And it doesn't matter. It's a human experience. It doesn't matter red, white, black, brown. It doesn't matter. We're all experiencing these things. So it makes other people visible to you. And so I think that that's great. It's something that we need a lot more of in this world. And kids will humble you quick. They humble you. I remember I was doing a commercial for TD Ameritrade before the Olympics. I'm trying to be cute, and so I have this cute wig on. And my daughter looks at me and she says, "Mommy, are you gonna tell him it's a wig?" And she grabs it and tries to pull it off. But kids will humble you, and it's the most rewarding title I've ever held, and it makes you understand why you are actually fighting and working so hard.
Yeah, I heard you say that if you had won a gold medal but zero family,
Yeah,
that wouldn't have felt like a success. And
100%.
I recently saw, I don't know if you've seen it as well, but I recently saw a video of Tom Brady. I don't know what it was an interview for, but he was very emotional, crying. He was like, I feel like I'm not the father that my
Mhm.
father was for me. And I
Oh,
was like, oh my gosh, like this is the
yeah.
most vulnerable, the
Wow.
GOAT, the GOAT.
Yes,
Like this
he
is
is
the
the
most
GOAT.
vulnerable this guy's ever been. And you can see like this really like messes him up.
Yeah,
And I was like, that's why I asked. It was like, wow, like this is a
yeah,
conversation that needs to be asked about more because like
yeah,
these, incredible athletes, the best of the best at what they do. But then it's like, okay, if you want to be the greatest,
yeah.
that there's going to be sacrifices then. And if you truly want to,
Yep.
win those gold medals, if you want
Yep.
to win 7 Super Bowls, like, all right,
Yep.
it's my family need to be sacrificed then. So
Yep.
that was really tough to see, but it's so cool to hear how you were able to, especially from a woman's perspective, like that
Yeah.
is completely different. And I've heard you talk about just like the changes that your body go through
Yeah.
and
Yep.
like being able to work, you know, back up after that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's truly, truly remarkable. And speaking of TD Ameritrade, so after 2016, you got a job offer from TD Ameritrade.
You're you're good. Yes.
So, like, at that moment in your life, like, were you officially retired and you're like, all right, I'm done competing and now let me go to work? Or what did 2016 and 2017 look like?
Yeah, so right after 2016, I was like, okay, I'm done. This is good. I'm moving on with my life because, like you were talking about, I was able to redefine what those true gold medals were to me. And at at the time I finished at 2016, I didn't know I was a medalist yet. Like I had won world championship medals. I was the American record holder, but that elusive Olympic medal, I didn't have it. And so once I realized that I needed to define what true success meant to me and understanding that that success was my children, it was, you know, I think if I didn't have them, I have no doubt that there's a good chance that I probably would have multiple Olympic medals. But I think that it was important for me to have the family and have the upbringing that I didn't have, and just to be able to have to pour in to to some of my own, and I think sometimes that comes in foster care or adoption, whatever, but like having that family is huge. And so after that I was done. I was like, okay, I'm gonna start using that passion for helping people financially. I'm gonna start using it, and I ended up working at TD Ameritrade.
Yeah. And then in 2017, you got drawn into life insurance
I did.
and that work was very, very aligned with you. And you end up getting your own life insurance policy.
Yep.
And that policy, something that you thought would be used for way down the line,
Yes.
quickly turns into something that feels much more tangible. And hey, maybe this is something that's going to be used a lot sooner than I
Yeah.
initially thought.
Yeah.
Um, Talk to me about navigating your entire journey with breast cancer.
Yeah. So, like you said, I got that life insurance policy, and I started having these really difficult conversations with people about their health and what would happen. It was really, really uncomfortable at first, but working as a financial advisor, I had a lot of people come up to me, and a lot of times I think it was the women after their husband had passed away, and they did not understand the finances, and they're left in shambles, and I'm looking at like the amount that they had left. I knew it wasn't enough. And you're like, wow, $250,000 or something like that, and you're like, that is a lot of money. But at their young age, is it enough to sustain your standard of life for the rest of your life? And I knew the numbers weren't adding up. And so that's when I started like looking at life insurance, and I'm like seeing these people like, and I'm not selling life insurance right now, but I'm just saying, like, I'm seeing these people, they're paying pennies on the dollar, and they're having these half a million, $250,000, $1 million policies. And I'm like, dang, what if the husband had done this for, just for his family, for his life? Like he had $250,000. If he would have just taken, 400, 300 of those dollars a year, he could have had this for his wife. And so I made the switch. I felt like it was a better use of my time helping having these uncomfortable conversations, getting the phone hung up on me just so that people would know, because I saw the hurt. I saw
Mm.
the hurt that they experience. And so anyways, I believe that if you're going to sell something, you have to have integrity about it. You have to purchase it. So how could I tell these people to buy it if I don't own it? So I purchased my own policy. I will tell you there was a contest involved, and I did win. but but I'm getting this policy. I'm learning about the riders, how you activate them, and I didn't think I would use it. Like I got the best rating possible. And if people don't know about life insurance, If you're healthy, then you get a lower, you pay a different rate. You pay a lower premium. The amount that you pay is going to be lower. So I had the best rate possible, the lowest fee. And once you lock in that fee, it doesn't matter if a health event happens, they can't raise your insurance. So it stays. So now let's fast forward. I think I bought my policy in 2017, maybe 2017, 2019. I'm diagnosed with breast cancer. I'm not even 40 yet, so I'm not even supposed to get mammograms, any of that. And I'm diagnosed with breast cancer. And I think you're like, and I don't like to say I'm the primary breadwinner because my husband is such a support for me. So he's coached me in certain time periods. He's been childcare, when we needed it. So we've always done this as a partnership. But the income comes from what I was doing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like if I go, like what will happen to my family? And so as I'm trying to fight for my life, I remembered I had that policy. And so it's two things. Like one, if I didn't make it, and thank God I did, but if I didn't, it would pay for my kids to still go to college. It would pay for our house to be paid off so that we'd never have like foreclosure or anything like that. It pays for everything that we dreamed up together. But it also did something else. If there was a treatment that I needed, and I felt this feels like a life insurance commercial, and I wanted to understand that there's a passion behind it because I think sometimes people say, "Oh, life insurance," and they don't understand why.
It's also just an important component of the
It's
story because
okay.
it's just remarkable to think of like you purchased that like okay I'm just doing this because I'm doing this work, but then like
Yep.
wow, like this is real.
It did. And so what I understood is that if there were different treatments that weren't covered by my insurance, I could take cash out of my policy. If the treatments were longer than expected and I wouldn't be able to go back to work, that cash could help sustain our household. So it was such a safety net that I didn't even think that I would need. You get life insurance, you think you're going to use it when you're old as burial or something like that, and not something that you would use when you were young. And so having that financial burden taken off was so helpful. And then even my shoe company, like Nike, re-signed me for a small contract just to make sure that like the household stuff was taken care of. So like having a financial burden on you when you're going through a health crisis is huge. And so life insurance sometimes could be the answer for that. And it was for me.
Another interesting component of your story is that this all really started because of another person's story, where you
Yeah.
see another athlete who shares
Yeah.
their entire experience and story with breast cancer, and
Yeah.
it gets you into the frame of mind of oh, I need to maybe be very careful about myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that is incredibly powerful. Just
Yeah.
like, and I think that shows the importance of story, not just
Yeah.
like sharing knowledge about life insurance or just cancer in general,
Yeah.
but sharing stories.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that experience and I guess coming to the conclusion of like, oh, like I think something might be off here.
Yeah, I think that like one of the things when it comes to my health, I was thinking like I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm a track athlete, like I'm in the best shape of my life. And so none of those illnesses were on my radar. Not like nothing. I'm thinking your 70s, your late 60s. That's when you start paying attention to that. And so um a lot of times when we're going through things, we think that we are the only ones who are going through it, but part of the human experience is that we're not alone. There's other people going through the same things, but a lot of times we think it's important to remain silent, or for whatever reason we don't feel comfortable sharing. And so that little leap of faith that this athlete took, and I don't know, she shared her story. So her Jamaican sprinter Novaline Williams, her name has changed now, she's been married, but she shared this story, and I was in shock because she competed in the Olympic Games, ran a 4x4, and then immediately comes home. I believe they won a medal as well. And then she comes home and has a double mastectomy because of her cancer journey. And so she shared her story. I heard it, and I started doing my breast exams because of her, because she was young, because she was just as healthy as me, if not healthier and more fit. And it happened to her, I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe it could happen to me. And so I thank God that she shared her story because it helped me. And it helped me find my cancer ultimately through a self breast exam in my shower by myself.
In those first few months after your diagnosis, you said you felt like you were a fraud because it felt like your identity had just been broken down. You felt like I'm
Yeah.
this healthy, competitive, athletic person, and now this so-called unhealthy thing
Yeah.
in quotes happens to you. Talk to me about navigating those feelings.
Yeah, I felt like I had fireproofed my life by not eating fried food, not eating a lot of sweets, um, sleeping, like not drinking alcohol, like all of these things. I hung my hat on the things that I didn't do. And so now when this illness is thrust upon me, number one, it messes up my mental avatar of what I thought somebody who could get this was. I felt like I was exempt and I was not. And so now it helps me feel empowered to raise the alarm. But in the moment, it made me feel like I wasn't strong. I wasn't powerful. I wasn't, and I think it was my son who used to like jump on me and like call me like his superwoman. And then now all of a sudden he's afraid to hug me. He was like
Hmm.
I think he was like 5. He was afraid to hug me and afraid to touch me. And he felt like he thought I was breakable. And I think that hurt. I think it hurt quite a bit, but understanding how other people might feel. And it like kind of like once again it opened my eyes to other people who are experiencing it. Breast cancer is very prevalent, specifically here in the United States, where 1 in 8 women in their lifetime will be diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I think that it was the first time where I had to rely on other people. I couldn't rely on my own strength and having to be open and vulnerable about what I needed and what I couldn't do, but then ultimately having the goal in the back of my mind like, okay, one day I'm going to get my strength back. One day I'm going to, be able to empower myself so I could help empower others. And I think you have to allow for a little bit of grace. You have to give yourself grace to heal because ultimately I couldn't keep being the superwoman and heal and accept the medication and the treatments that I had to have. I had to let a certain part of myself go temporarily and then build it back up. But the reality is you're never the same. And I'm not saying I'm not strong. I'm saying that I'm never the same because my priorities are different. My compassions are different. My ability to give myself grace and rest are different. And my mindset about what's required to be healthy is different. And so I had I don't even know if this is a word, a depletist mindset, meaning what I could deplete my mind from or my body from or abstain from. And I thought that that made me healthy. Now I understand that it's not just what you take
Hmm.
out, it's
Yeah.
what you put in. And so now it's like, and that's mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. It's what you are putting into yourself. And so it's a two-part component to actually be healthy, what you're abstaining from and what you're putting in. And so I didn't give my body the nutrients that it needed to fight cancer. I didn't even understand the research behind it. I didn't give my mind what it needed to fight cancer and be strong. And so now I do both and I go and I give that to the world. I go out and do keynote speeches. I'm writing a book because I want people to understand that before it's too late for them.
That's very powerful. Cancer, obviously, like you said, can be a very isolating experience. It affects so many people, but it can feel like you're the only one.
Yeah.
How important were the prayer group and the survivor group that you had set up and allowing for that grace and compassion to embody you?
I think in that moment when you're facing a life or death situation, the things that are really important to you become very clear. And one of those things that became very, very clear to me was my faith. And so being able, I believed in the power of prayer. I believe that prayer changes things. And when there's certain situations where I'm completely out of control, I believe that my creator is in control. And so in those moments, my husband set up a prayer chain of people that we knew that like were warriors or had been through something, and like they know how to get down in the trenches and fight with you. We started telling them specifically what we were praying for. So it's like, okay, well, first thing we're praying for is that this hasn't spread to the lymph nodes. We're praying that it hasn't metastasized. And so then once we get through that barrier and it hadn't, we move to the next one. Now we're praying that we could just do a short surgery in this. And so every single step along the way, we were very specific about what we wanted and how we prayed. And I went to an event recently where they asked people, it was like a church event, and they asked people to stand up who had been through certain things. So like, who has experienced, you know, being in debt but getting out of it and having financial freedom, or you know, something like that. And then those people would stand up and they understand, like they prayed through that. And they're like, okay, those are the people you need to go to if you're going through this.
Hmm.
And I've never seen that before, and I loved it, but that's what we did. We had found people who had been through something similar, who had a very strong prayer relationship with God, and those are the people that we trusted to pray with us through those trials. But then there's still the component of nobody around me understands exactly what I'm going through. And I started going online. And at that point, that's where I found the community of wonderful women and men who had been through breast cancer diagnosis. And we were sharing information with one another. And I think that's where I truly started to heal. And I went from just barely surviving to thriving, even in the midst of this hard diagnosis.
I resonate with that on a deep level, that point of finding the people who have walked the path.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and I think that's a huge opportunity for growth within the health and wellness and medical space
Yeah.
of not just finding, all right, who are the people who deal with the problems
Yeah.
for helping me, but it's
Yeah.
more so who are the people who have overcome this, because that
Absolutely.
is truly what's going to help me heal and give me that hope. And speaking of your husband again, so you had wanted him to film and document
Yeah.
a lot of your journey, especially like the really tough and raw
Yeah.
moments, and he
Yeah.
couldn't bring himself to do
Yeah.
that. From what I've seen, though, it seems like there is a lot of videos and photos documented. How powerful is it to be able to reflect back and see that past version of yourself?
Yeah, I try not to dwell on it too much, but it's so important to see how far I've come, because I think that gratefulness and thankfulness are important. But I think also when you have experiences of the past and you can remember what that hurt feels like or that weakness, and you could see it tangibly, you can make better decisions for your future. So I think that when you first go through a traumatic experience, it's very easy to stick to a regimented process that makes sure it never happens. But as more time separates you from that thing, it's easier to start giving in to the old patterns of doing things, the old temptations. And I think we even see that like in our society, like when we faced hard things as a nation. And the further we get away from hard things, it's easier to kind of relax a little bit. And so I think that it's very, very important to remember where you've come from so that you can keep making the right decisions to make sure it doesn't happen again. And it was really hard. Sometimes I have to set the camera up myself. But I think that it was important for people to see it because I didn't want people to feel alone. A lot of times we feel like our low is lower than anyone else's low. And so when they could see that, wow, she's doing okay and she's thriving now, but this is where she was.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, my mess isn't too bad, too horrible for me to overcome it and ultimately get to a place where I'm happy, where I'm finding joy and peace and comfort. And so, yeah.
Do you feel like you were sharing a lot, like within live time of going through things, or was it more of a reflective process of sharing things?
I shared more in the moment. So like
Wow.
when I found out that I was diagnosed, and like the crazy thing is, I'm horrible at social media. Like, you know how some people just have it? Like I don't have it. But I've noticed that those raw moments where I recorded the moment that I found out that I was diagnosed. I'm sitting in the garage and I just recorded. My hair was messed up. I had a bandana on and I posted it online. That is the moments that really resonated with people. And I remember the first time I jumped, I high jumped again. Like I was training for the Olympics and I high jumped and I just posted it. I had to drive 3 hours. I posted it like, hey guys, I jumped and I'm crying. Oh, I finally got to jump. And it was low. Like I didn't even jump high. And when I came back home, I already had like 10,000 views. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
because we're craving that. We're not waiting for manufactured, manicured, perfectly lit moments. We need something that is relatable, something that gives us hope, something that's real. And so that's what we're craving in these days.
Yeah, I mean, that provides a much greater impact for people rather than seeing you on the stage getting a gold medal.
Exactly. Agreed.
But what I really love about your journey with cancer, and I guess you could say, putting a positive note on it, like the power that cancer brought for you was that it alchemized your athletic career
Yeah.
from simply just being a competitor and a performer
Yeah.
to, okay, I'm going to use my role as an athlete, and I'm going to use the Olympic stage as a storyteller.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the training process, because you originally were like, all right, I'm hanging it up, but then you're like, all right, I'm going to train for the 2020 Olympics, and I'm doing it from the standpoint of like, yes, trying to compete, but more so
Yeah.
as a storyteller to provide this hope and inspiration for, look at where I was and look at what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah, I think that, like, even when I think about, let's think, like, take it back to getting my Olympic medal. The only reason that I got the medal is because somebody else saw that there was a system in place that was, not advantageous to people who were doing it right. And so they advocated and they found a way to make sure that there was a path for people who were doing things right to get their rightful medals. Well, I started taking that advocacy seriously. And I felt like it's not enough for me to just know that cancer touches a lot of people. It's like, how could I do something about it? And at the time, like I said, I was a life insurance agent, financial advisor. I couldn't really do much from that platform. But as I started studying and learning about the disease that was impacting my life, I learned that the best weapon that we had to fight back against breast cancer was early detection. And the only way to get that information out there for me was to get in front of as many cameras as possible. And I know the most cameras I've ever seen were at the Olympic Games. It's so, it's so,
And that's also because that's what ultimately helped you when you were at the start of
there you
like
go.
seeing the story. So like, all right, now
Yep.
I need to embody that storyteller.
Yep, exactly. And so now I'm trying to get back to the Olympic Games. I'm trying, and I want to, yes, I want to compete well, but I could care less about a medal. My goal was getting in front of the cameras. And so as I'm going along that training process throughout that year, I'm getting the opportunities where that as I'm posting things online, the Today Show's like, oh, we love what you're doing. Like, can we share your story? And they told it twice. And then different partners were aligning with me. So I was able to share my story on a billboard across 3 different states in the nation. And, like getting the opportunity to share on the Instagram's like official webpage with 370 million followers and share this story. So I know that this message is getting out. And ultimately, I ended up getting COVID right before the Olympic trials. I didn't go back to my fifth Olympic Games, but that message went all throughout the world. And so for me, like that's the most successful Olympic Games I've had because that story got out and that's what was truly important to me.
The cool thing about your athletic career and life, and just from hearing you talk all about it, because obviously one of the things that athletes struggle a lot with or can struggle a lot with
Yeah.
is, all right, I had my professional career and then
Yeah.
there's retirement and post career, and there's that
Yeah.
sharp divide. It
Yeah.
seems like for you, just from my perception, just like a seamless path that you've just continued to walk from start until now. Does it feel like that?
It does. And I think the reason why is like once again those stories. You hear the stories about the athletes, and so it's something that I was aware of while I was competing. One of my greatest training partners, her name was Tisha Waller. She also taught and was a principal while she was competing. And so like I'm watching her, she's coming from work, changing her, suit clothes into her athletic wear. And so in the back of my mind, it's always like, okay, this is going to be for a time in my life. And then after that time is up, I need to be preparing for something else. And so I think that's why I was going to the financial route, and always trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to integrate this into my life? And I knew that it was important to kind of go quickly after I'm done retiring, because I graduated in 2008. At some point your degree is old and outdated. And so when I went into the financial services field, um, I also worked at a place called Schwab. So while I was working there was this guy that would travel throughout the different branches that we had, and he was just a speaker. I was like, wait a minute, hold on. I can get paid for talking? Like I get in trouble for talking. They're always telling me to shut up. And I like the way that he kind of made me feel. And I had that same feeling I had when I saw other people high jumping. Like I saw him, I was jealous. Like,
Mm, that's
wait,
when you know.
like I knew I wanted to do it. And so my manager at the time gave me an opportunity to do like a keynote for he gave me opportunity to do two. One was for some young kids that came that were from like the YMCA, and we were going to present them with a check, and so I got to speak for them and then like share my life story with them. And the other one was a women's group, and he looked at me and he was like, "This isn't what you're supposed to be doing." I was like, "Am I getting fired?" He was like, "When I saw you speak, that's what you're supposed to be doing." And as much as I loved finance and working in that field, it didn't light my fire as much as being able to speak. And so now I do that full time. I love talking to groups and being able to get the opportunity to share on your platform like this. And so I'm loving life right now.
The energy that you have when you speak and the way that you articulate everything, it truly does seem like being an Olympic athlete was ultimately just a catalyst to become what you truly are at your core, which is a speaker and a storyteller.
Oh, thank you. I love that. I will take that.
Chaunte, it's been incredible speaking with you. Where can people go to connect with you and see more of the work that you do?
Well, I love to hear from you guys. So I have my website that I've just launched is chauntelowe.com. So there's two. There's chauntelowespeaks.com. That one's a little ghetto. So chauntelowe.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, and please keep your eyes out for my book that is coming
Ooh,
out soon. So a lot of the lessons that we've talked about today, I've been scared to write it, but I know ultimately the same feeling that you got maybe when you heard me speak, I want people to have with them in a book. So we're going to go a little deeper, more detail, and yeah, you get to pick my brain a little bit.
do you know when that's going to be out yet, or that's just like right at the start now?
It's not the start. It is
Okay.
very, very close to the finish line, but
Okay,
I'm
nice.
so critical of myself that I'm like, I probably just need like a little push. I'm like a baby bird. I need to be pushed out of the nest a little bit. So it's coming very soon. I would say at the latest, um, the winter, but it might come like early fall.
Awesome. Well, congrats. I mean, writing a book is no small feat, so huge accomplishment.
Thank you so much.
Great talking with you today.
Hey, great interview. I'm super impressed with you. Anybody thinking about doing an interview with him, absolutely do it. I'm very
I
impressed.
appreciate you saying that. I'm going to clip that and I'm going to send that to everyone.
Please do.